And we're live in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Hey guys, Jordan Nielsen here, host of Real Estate Pros on Lister Pros TV. Today we're at Guild Mortgage in Tucson, Arizona with Bob Cheney. Thank you so much for taking time out of your busy day and joining me on Real Estate Pros.
My pleasure.
Awesome. So for those watching that don't know who you are, we'll give you a moment to introduce yourself.
Well, my name is Bob Cheney. I'm a real estate sales person with Long Realty here in Tucson, Arizona. I especially like helping downsizers, second home buyers, snowbirds, relocations, and retirees. Originally, I came here after having lived in 7 states, coast to coast. Moved here in 2006 after 25 years in sales and marketing, Silicon Valley in Northern California. My first several years in the business, I focused primarily on buyers, so that I felt it would be very helpful if I got more background as to buyers' perspectives, what their hot buttons were, so that downstream, when I began working with more sellers, I'd be better able to have sellers look at the process through buyers' eyes and better present their properties for a quicker sale at higher dollar volume, or best top price, if you will. I particularly enjoy the process of asking clients or prospects questions. I like interviewing, so I like your side.
Sure.
Okay?
You like to interview people?
Yeah. So it's very advantageous on the buy side, for example, by spending a little bit extra time up front, asking folks questions, and learning what they're really looking for. It helps very much to shorten the time that it takes to buy a home. Typically, I can find, assuming everybody's giving good quality answers, I can find what somebody wants in 10 to 12 homes, 10 to 12 showings total. It's a drastic savings of time. I had one client, in fact, write back a testimonial that they had made more progress with me in one day than they had in many weeks with 2 agents prior to working with me. They're coming here from Florida. On the sell side, it's helpful to learn the seller's motivation and expectations. Somebody who needs to sell at any cost quickly is different than somebody who this home is maybe their second or third home and they just want to lighten their load. So spending that time to learn where they're really coming from is very, very helpful for everybody. And then as well on the seller side, I enjoy counseling sellers on changes, repairs, cosmetics, and perhaps upgrades that would make the most sense for them to invest in, that would give them the best chance for getting the most return on their dollars. So those are some of the things that I enjoy.
Awesome. So those are aspects of real estate that you enjoy the most?
Yeah, and another one is negotiating. I love negotiating and deal making, which are sort of intertwined. But for example, it happens more than once, but I can think of one example where a client was wondering about the offer price, and between the information that I was able to provide them on the market values and so on and so forth, we went in at a price where, when the deal was done, they moved into the house with instant equity of $29,000 or a 7% gain by turning the key.
Wow.
Okay. Sometimes as fiduciary agents, where we end up counseling our own clients, sometimes we can sense that perhaps there's something in the loan process that is not to the buyer's best advantage. We might counsel them to try another lender. And I've done that a number of times, and it's nice to have them come back and say how much they appreciated it. They not only got better service, but they got better terms.
Sure.
One case, there was a buyer, we were right down to within a week of close, and the major bank was putting roadblocks up. And they weren't making, my client, who was a commercial client of the bank, wasn't getting any progress. So with his permission, I stepped in. I was able to get a hold of a supervisor, and we kept the deal going, and we only had to extend the close by about a week. But that deal almost crashed because my client wasn't able to get the bank off the dime, so
Sure.
to speak. There was an unusual circumstance once where some clients came into town and had really fallen in love with the home. This was what they were with another agent at the time. They made an offer, but the offer crashed. The seller didn't like the idea. The deal died. That seller got frustrated with the market, took the home off the market. These buyers came to me. We figured we were getting along, and they told me about that circumstance. I got a hold of the agent who represented that buyer, and they said they would entertain another offer. They didn't know where it was coming from, but I educated my buyers as to what the real values were. Their earlier offer was way too low, but we made a reasonable offer and we got it accepted, and from the time they met me to the time they turned key, it was 25 days, and that included a Christmas and New Year's holiday.
Oh, wow.
So
That's quick.
yeah, so that was kind of interesting. So I think there were some, I think your audience would appreciate learning a few things about.
Sure, that's actually what I was going to ask you. Like, what tips would you give homeowners when, in preparation to selling their home?
There's a long list, but I'll just give a few of them, and one of them is I always recommend people to go ahead and hire a home inspector. Sounds a little unusual. You're normally expecting the home inspector downstream.
Yeah.
But it's nice, you're selling a product, so it's nice to know what you have. Okay? So a home inspector will come in, and they will go from the roof to the basement, if there's one, and give you an idea about what's right, what's wrong, what's working, what isn't. And that gives you an opportunity to decide whether or not you want to invest the money and time to fix those things, or potentially, let's say roof, for example, somebody says you got $5,000 on roof repairs. You might want to not pay for that now and see what comes up in the actual home inspection once you have a contract in place. Because the buyer may say, I know it's going to cost $5,000, we'll split it with you for $2,500. Well, you're $2,500 ahead at that point, right?
Right.
Yeah. So that's one thing. I always suggest having a home inspection done. During that process, oftentimes, you will discover things about plumbing. And plumbing in this scenario, I would emphasize learning about leaks. There's two kinds of leaks: the leaks you see and the leaks you don't. Leaks you see are one thing, but the leaks you don't are behind walls typically. And if you discover those during a home inspection, that probably means you have mold. And if you have mold, that's a whole different ballgame.
Sure, yeah.
Okay? Because with mold, now the buyer says, mold, they get scared and out the door. If it's something where they say, okay, fine, we'll go ahead, but we want professional remediation and so on and so forth, that of course can be done, but it takes a buyer willing to go through that and delay the whole process and so on and so forth. I've been through that any number of times. The big problem on mold, and I had one earlier this year, is failure to disclose. We have a document that's called a SPUDS for short, the Seller Property Disclosure Statement. And in it, the seller is supposed to disclose everything they know about the home during the time they've owned it. We had a circumstance earlier this year on a home that was marketed, super dandy, looks fine and everything else. And I had gotten a tip during the process that there could be a problem in that home. And sure enough, 2 days prior to the end of the 10-day inspection period, I got a notice that was actually paperwork from a local water remediation company. And in that, it was showing work that they had done and the word mold. So what happened? Obviously, the property had been under contract before, the work was done, and yet the seller and the agent failed to disclose later that that had happened. So now my buyer's got a big trust issue. What else are they hiding, right? So mold, water, tricky business. You just want to be upfront about it.
And what about sewer line scoping?
Oh, sewer line scoping, that's another dandy. A lot of people aren't aware of it, but unless you've bought new construction, unless it's a new home, I always recommend invest the money. Typically it's going to be under a couple $100 unless it's a real long line or something, or it's very old. But it's going to be well worth it. I know of 2 examples where after folks had moved in, one was a $7,000 repair bill, another was a $5,000 repair bill. Both of those could have been avoided had the sewer scoping taken place at the time of the property was being bought.
Wow.
So
that's an expensive repair.
That's a very expensive, yeah.
That you could easily have put on the seller on that one. What about pools? What kind of issues do you see with pools?
Well, the biggest gripe I have with pools, when people have their home on the market, why put a home on the market with a green pool? There are a few pools where the color is to be green by design, but that's a very minuscule percentage. The rest of them are algae, okay? And that doesn't go well with buyers. They want sparkling, clean pools. The other thing is making sure all the equipment is operating properly, efficiently. And again, no leaks, no excess electricity, and so on and so forth.
And then contractors list?
Contractors. In my 13 years, I've developed, coincidentally, 13 pages of contractors' names and what they do, virtually every discipline you can think of. And that has proven invaluable countless times with clients. So it's something that clients really appreciate having access to, and I'm certainly more than happy to share.
All right, so talk to us a little bit about floor plans and photography.
The advantage to having a floor plan is simply that more often than not, if a professional floor plan is done, you're going to find that you actually have more square footage in your home than what's shown on the assessor's records. That translates to more you can ask for your home because it's a bigger property. And so far as photography is concerned, be alert and be conscientious about the photographs that you're sharing with the marketplace. It astounds me at times to see some of the poor quality of photography that's out there. At your home, you want it shown in its best light. Those photographs are certainly critical in that process.
Sure. And how about the importance of curb appeal?
Curb appeal matters. And like I say, it's first impressions, curb appeal. From the time somebody gets out of the car, sees the front landscaping, if there's any courtyard gates or whatever, all of the going right up the outside of the building, paint, gutters, all that, fascia, so on. And when you get to the doors, I can tell you this much, a clean door or doors, security door and the interior door, and shiny hardware goes a long way to a good first impression. And conversely, when they're dirty, dusty, need paint, need cleaning, etc., the reverse. So it's like right off the bat you're telling your buyer, beware.
Sure.
Or, wow, come on in, this might be your home.
Right. So if somebody watching this is interested, want to reach out to you for some additional information, or if they have additional questions, how do people get a hold of you?
Well, that's an easy one. Please feel free to call me directly if you like at 520-877-8696. Email me at bobc@longrealty.com, or very simply my website is bobcheney.com. And Jordan, I thank you very much for this opportunity.
Yeah,
it's
absolutely.
been a pleasure.
Thanks a lot for
I hope we were able to help your viewers.
Awesome. And we'll see you guys on the next episode.